You must figure out somehow, some way, to be a vibrational match to what you've asked for. If you've asked for more money, you can't be beating the drum of not enough and be a match. Oh, you did step one, you did it, and you did it, and you did it, and you did it, and you did it. You've been asking and asking and asking. And Source has lined everything up. More magnificent rendezvous orchestrated on your behalf. So much has been done on your behalf in lining up the circumstances and events that will produce the manifestation that you seek.
This is going to sound like a silly question. Does Source have as filthy of a sense of humor as I do? Because it feels really good to laugh that uncontrollably, and I just have like a really, really high threshold for that. But then sometimes I think, God, this is really awful stuff, except it's not until it's focused at somebody. And as long as it's in the abstract, it feels good. But I got to know because...
Well, we're talking about relational things. And so in the same way that anger feels better than grief, joy feels better than anger. And so we'll just say about Source, Source never finds humor in the discomfort of anyone. Source feels humor in a lot of things. You live in a situation comedy.
Yeah.
You do. And the situations are made by the combinations of vibrations that you are and the unique, always new in the moment, freshness, potential that is there. And so sometimes what you're reveling in is the newness of an idea or the cleverness of something that has not occurred before. Mm-hmm. But the more you come into alignment and the more often that you stay in alignment, the more you will understand what the humor of the Source within you really is. Mm-hmm. Esther has been trying to explain irony to her grandson who really wants to know about it. And he plays this game where he will say, Grandma, is that ironic or just unfortunate? In other words, and sometimes it's both. But they play this game all the time. And what we want all of you to understand is that the greatest irony in the world is that you are so blessed and don't know it. We don't find that humorous. But there is irony in it. There is irony in that you are extensions of Source energy, which means you have the potential to be or do or have anything that life can help you to identify. And yet you don't allow yourself to do it because you don't find the true vibrational nature of who you are. And so we prefer to talk about the relationship between where you are and who you really are than comparing you to anything else that's happening in your physical world. Right. So we don't know what you mean by filthy.
Well, just take a great comedian or something and they make some observation and they use foul language or something, but it's just hilarious. And I think that guy had to be in the vortex when he came up with that, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, the words are irrelevant. It's the emotion behind them that is. And anyone who's in a state of protest is not in a state of alignment. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of humor that is projected from being in the state of protest. And again, that's moving up the emotional scale. It feels better to be vulgar by physical terms or shocking to some than it is to feel subservient to them or misunderstood by them. And so there's a lot of that shock value, shock valuelessness that is introduced into things because people are trying to gain control of their own experience. We'll just put it to you in this way. Sometimes someone will sit in the hot seat and they will offer something that could be offensive to some. We offered a word like that here today, and we will reflect it back for the fun in which it is offered. And so we would be looking for the vibrational basis of things and not get too hung up in the vocabulary of anything. It's the intention that matters. And if your intent is fun, then we would focus there. And there is something else. And this is really why you're having this conversation with us. And we are really in agreement with you and with the reason that you're having this conversation with us. There is something, we've been talking all day here about alignment and unconditional love, and we've really been wanting to be clear advocates of you tuning into who you really are and presenting yourself as you mean to be from your point of alignment. But in this physical world, most people are not at that place of clarity. Most people are so keenly aware of what other people think about them. And so almost everybody you know, to some degree or another, and in most cases to a very substantial degree, have given up their control of who they are and their awareness of their alignment or not with their source energy. They've given that up for approval from others. And so sometimes, and we think some of these comedians that you are talking about really fit that criteria, sometimes people just get tired of believing that they need to be a certain way to please other people. Esther can remember very clearly being at a dinner, it was just Jerry and Esther, and Tracy was there and another couple. And the other couple was complimenting Jerry and Esther, this was many years ago, on, from their point of view, the perfection of the way they presented themselves in the world. At which point, Esther told a very inappropriate joke. And she can remember the look on Jerry's face. He couldn't believe what was happening. And she couldn't stop herself. And it was one of those cases, she's only had one other incident like it, where the whole world went into slow motion. And she saw the disgust and horror on the faces of the people across the table. And she saw the amazement in Jerry's eyes that he just couldn't believe what was happening. And Esther's explanation to herself and to Jerry was, I could not stand the image that they had carved out about us. I could not stand the pedestal that they had put us on.
Right.
I wanted them to understand that I am just as raunchy as anybody that they ever know, and I don't want to have to perform in a certain way in order to gain their appreciation. Now, Esther doesn't even know where she got all of that at that time. In other words, she wasn't philosophizing like she is now, and we weren't flowing through her in the way that we are now at all in that time. But what we're getting at is there is sometimes, and we think it's a good thing, a rebellion that sort of comes up within you that says, I am not going to behave the way you think that you need me to behave in order for you to approve of me. Because there's a very deep part of you that understands that seeking their approval is the opposite of seeking your own alignment. You can't have it both ways. You cannot serve the master of the masses and the alignment that you are looking for. You just can't have it.
Yeah, I just don't want to, I have a fear.
So is this what we're talking about? Do you think this is the basis of what this question is about?
Yeah, I do, to some extent, because I do think there's a part of me.
Not to some extent, to every extent.
You're right,
I want you
to
to
every
acknowledge
extent.
that this is what it is all about.
Because I worry, I don't want to walk around pretending to be a Himalayan monk just so that people will think I'm in alignment. Because that's not who I am. It's not how I roll,
And yet you don't have to take the other end of it either. In other words, Esther took a really strong extreme in her rebellion against. And what we want you all to do is just to give up caring what anybody else is perceiving and just be who you are. And then just go from there. Just go from there.
Sounds good.
You will never speak in a way that turns the source within you off from who you are. You will never behave in such a way or be in any moment in such a way that you disappoint the source within you. But you may behave in a way that twists your perspective in a place that you cannot receive the source within you. And so, in answer to your question, we would like to say to you that in many cases, source is the author of those terrible jokes.
I knew it. As long as it's not being focused at somebody. If it's just, because I just could not imagine my sister and I will get into these rampages where we're just in general saying things and we will start laughing so hard. It'll bring us to tears and we can't talk anymore because we can't breathe. And I'm like, I have to be in alignment in a moment like that. It's too much fun not to be. So we had to have help because we're not really that funny.
Timing is everything, and timing comes from alignment.
Perfect. Thank
Really
you so
good.
much.
Yeah.